welcome back to the ICE conference, or at least to the feedback round. I would say let's just get started with a couple of comments from your side, what you have liked about the conference. I'm gonna check the comments and just comment on some things as we go. There's about a 10 seconds or so lag between what I'm saying and when you will be receiving the video, so there's going to be a little bit of lag there. But yeah, please let me know a few comments to get this stream started, and so we can have a look at what we could potentially improve. There are already some comments out there, and one thing that I would like to add, and maybe Robert can do this, just also place the link to the Discord channel that we have for the conference, and also the event web page quickly in the comments, so that people can also follow up that don't know yet which URL to use actually to go to the Discord channel. But otherwise, yeah, just let the comments flow. There's not yet coming much, so cool. Okay, so somebody posted, Dutch Kathy actually posted, I love the diversity of topics. That's a good thing that people actually like the diversity, because that's actually exactly the thing that we would like to go after. So it is the intention that we have multiple topics to be discussed that are artist-centric. And obviously, if you're working or if you're discussing topics around the artist, then there are a lot of things to talk about. So there are a lot of things like, for example, talking about students, how do you enter the industry, or let's say or related to that, there are maybe some aspects of, hey, am I good enough with my portfolio, or what could I do to get better, or what are the strategic things that I could look out for to have a better chance to get into the industry. And so there's a bunch of topics around this, let's say around this notion. Then continuing, you could also say there's some technology, new technologies, new workflows that we could use to, or let's say to new types of workflows that use new technologies, new software pieces, and so on. But we don't want to go way too deep into the technical aspects. I guess there are a lot of specific conferences about that. So the artist centricity is definitely something that is very, very important to this specific conference. So now I got another comment on how about industry on location videos. I'm not perfectly sure what that means, but maybe Dutch Kathy, maybe you can elaborate on that. And the whole notion of having, I'm not sure how I should tackle this question, but the whole point, obviously, during the pandemic, One of the most important things is regarding the future of this conference for the, let's say, for second or third or fourth and so on edition of the event is, should we, or would you prefer that that conference is actually held in a specific location so people can meet physically? Is that something that you are interested in, or would you say, nah, I'm okay if I can watch a couple of videos on the topics online when I feel like it, or in general I like hybrid events. So there's a plethora of topics we can talk about, and I believe in a couple of minutes or so I will start noting things down. I've prepared a little drawing board in Photoshop, and some probably just gonna lay out a couple of thoughts, and then we can continue adding to that. Cool. So I got a reply from Dutch Kathy. It's actually Mike Hermes. Nice that you're here. Hello. And the question is industry on location width. So it's pretty much, he means studio tours. Why not? That's very cool. And yes, on location for sure, like for physical events. So studio tours, that is actually something that could be very interesting in the sense of how do studios operate, how do they, or how do people work, on what are they working, obviously related to 3D environments. But I think it's also important to let's say, now I just lost that thought. It happens. What was that thought? It happens. Anyway, also, so studio tours would definitely be a very interesting topic to actually go to studios and kind of introduce them. And otherwise, regarding the location, is this could also obviously be connected to, for example, if there are future editions of the conference, that it could, for example, the event could travel from location to location or from city to city, and we, in each of those cities, there could be like location tours that are of companies that are specifically working in that field. That's just a thought that I just had before. There are many different things. Also factory tours. Mike is writing also factory tours where they use industry applications. That definitely is obviously also an opportunity. Or an option, definitely. Yeah, so let me actually quickly go into or switch my screen here to Photoshop, if it then works. There's a little bit of this. Let me move this one over here. Yeah, this should be working now. Cool. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add a couple of topics right around my head over here. So let's get started with the first title. Let's actually make the font a little bit bigger. Let me move this guy. Choose one of the cooler fonts. Like so. Cool. Let's start with adding a couple of categories, and we can then start to rearrange those thoughts. let me just note this one down. Location videos. This can be, for example, studio tours or studio introductions. Let me note this one down. And then potentially also like or factory tours. I'm just going to note this comment down. Factory tours. And let's make the text a tiny little bit smaller, because we may actually go back to this stuff. So one thing actually that before even going into structuring all of the points from the feedback that we're getting, is I have a strong tendency that, as I mentioned before, there will be a couple of clusters of topics that go well together. So there's, for example, the psychological aspects. I'm just going to note this down here. Let's say, oops, undo. Let's say we're going into something like psychology. I'm just going to note down a few items here. So this is a big topic. Then we may have another topic, like for example, getting into the industry. That's another topic. And so I'm just gonna place down a couple of keywords. But what I think is, in which direction I believe it could go is, and I just saw that this comment is actually coming in, we could have tracks that are where multiple topics are actually clustered around one of those key topics. So if you have some ideas about, let's say, tracks of topics, then let me know in the comments, and we could then kind of flesh those tracks actually out and start like digging deeper for each track and add a couple of subtopics. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the clusters make the track topics that I see so far. I'm gonna make them a little bit bigger. So let's say something like that. And I'm just gonna arrange them. Now, getting into the industry, that is something that has a lot to do with, let's say, psychology, or we could also say that, for example, let's add something like the creating a CV, or for example, also a topic could be the portfolio and how to apply. That is something that we've actually seen is something that comes in quite often. And so I'm getting into the industry, I'm gonna group those guys here. Good. Then location videos, studio tours. This could be, maybe there's a question for Mike, who actually placed this or posted this comment before. Also, and there's I just saw there's another comment with the industry teachers to discuss this certain disconnect with the feature. But to get back to the point, Mike, you just mentioned before that regarding the studio tours and factory tours is regarding the location videos. How did you mean that precisely? Would that pretty much be or location videos or studio tours as more like company introductions, or how do you see that? Just to elaborate, so I can place your comment here in an appropriate position. So I'm just going to move this guy over. So companies in the field. I'm gonna just quickly place this guy here. Architecture to 3D or 3D to architecture? That's an interesting point. Let them showcase what they use and why. Cool. I'll note that down. There's another point that came in. I will dive into this in a second. Showcase what they use and why. What do they use and why? So, yeah. Cool. Companies in the field. Let's push this a little bit over here, getting into the industry, psychology. Oops. This one here, get this one here. Let me actually ungroup this guy. So, cool. Okay, now there was a comment by Angelica. Maybe have portfolio reviews. People could apply before the event sending their portfolio. Maybe not the entire portfolio, but a piece for the expert to comment live in the event. That's a very cool idea. I think it should be anonymous because people don't like to be critiqued publicly. But I like the idea. I'm noting this one down. Just gonna push this one here. Let me put that actually here. Feedback. So, good. Art send-in contest for sure. Yeah. Mike has just mentioned an art contest. That is something that we have actually started already thinking about it. I'm gonna note this down again for sure, because I think that's a great input. Meanwhile, I lost track of that, but let's put that here. Art contest. Wouldn't mind to receive public constructive criticism. That's a good keyword. It has to be constructive. That's true. That's true. But yeah, the option of being anonymous would work. Thank you for liking the idea. No, I think it's important because there are so many people, especially if like recruiters or people that hire people for companies. They say the portfolio is one of the most important things. The same thing with structuring a CV, and a lot of people and even a lot of teachers in the field of 3D graphics and 2D graphics, they know it's important, but they're not stressing it enough. So I think it's really, really an important topic, and so therefore I think or because of it I wanted to add it. Okay. Yeah, so architecture to 3D and 3D to architecture. I wanted to quickly go back to that. Mike, if you're still here or around, What did you mean specifically by architecture to 3D or 3D to architecture? Do you see that? How do you see that? Do you see that maybe in a manufacturing approach, or maybe you can elaborate? If a physical event, then a speed date setup between industry and students. Ooh, speed dating. Yes, let me note that. Let me note that down. That could also be a part of the portfolio feedback. I'm just gonna add this here into as an option that we can talk about. Speed dating student. Let's do it like that. How to apply? Move this guy over. Move this guy down. Speed dating student / industry expert. I've noted that down. Cool. Study 3D as an architect or vice versa. Yeah, okay. Those kind of go hand in hand. I think I know where you're going with that. So let me actually make another topic out of this. I just think that this could go into, let's say, theoretical knowledge about architecture and 3D 3D architecture, or architecture in 3D environments. So what I see is a lot of students are, for example, very, very knowledgeable in creating architectural models per se, but they don't, but what they lack is kind of the basics, the historic basics and the constructional basics of how architecture works. So something like an architecture 101 or an urban planning. Let me note that down. Urban planning 101 could be something that is also very helpful in the sense of coming, or that there's an understanding between coming from the art side and producing art, like the craftsmanship, but also coming from the theoretical side or from the scientific side. Cool. But let's add a couple of more topics. So I'm just gonna create one more topic that goes a little bit also into, let's say, another topic could be maybe storytelling. Storytelling could, for example, consist of, let me art contest psychology. Let's copy this guy. Oops, wrong layer. So storytelling could, for example, be visually, obviously it's visually, let's say color theory, perspective, or things like that. In fact, or let's say form-based. I'm gonna add this / form-based. So this could be related, for example, to the presentation that we heard at the conference from Chris Solarski, talking about like sketched form and how do you use that to develop, let's say, the form of a 3D environment. And before I forget it, I'm gonna do storytelling. I'm gonna create another topic that could be something like physical models. That is actually our practical models. So this could be, or this is something that is still in the film industry, for example, heavily used, that people are creating miniature models that they then photograph as if it were a real scale model. There are some beautiful examples about that. And sometimes it's very, very hard nowadays in, for example, when watching a movie, is to distinguish whether something was actually created in digital 3D or in physical 3D, as it was done obviously much more practical in past. Like look at all the Star Wars movies, or look at, for example, like a couple of years ago, the film sets of Harry Potter and Hogwarts, where they built a massive 3D model, or the same thing also, which I believe I talked about in my presentation at the conference about for the Blade Runner physical models that were created at the Weta workshop. So there's a huge topic around that, and I'm gonna throw into this category. I'm gonna put in also like the proper photography. So in the sense of, because photography is something where you physically have to go somewhere and actually photograph something that physically exists. Cool. Let's have a look at some more comments. We have speed dating. Study 3D as an architect. Buddy system in companies training the next gen. A buddy system in companies to train the next generation. When I was working in the film industry, I had a buddy, but that was actually within a company. I'm just gonna add this. Comment here, how to apply getting into the industry. But then you're already kind of in the industry. Then let me create a new topic here instead of storytelling. I'm gonna copy this guy. Then we have something like improving the skills. So let's say, for example, you already have a job and you would like to get better at it, for example, within a company. What could I copy? This guy here. Company buddy. Just adding this guy. Let me actually create yet another topic. Cross-industry collaborations is also something that I just wanted to throw out there, because I believe, especially at our conference, this could be something that is very valuable for industry, for companies that work in complete different industries, to start working together more. So for example, one example could be that if you are, for example, city administration and you're working on historic 3D models, that you start to work together with a game studio or with 3D students, for example, that have more knowledge in creating 3D models, for example, and collaborations like that could also be a topic to talk about, like projects that happened in this manner. But yeah, let's go back and back to the chat. Environment photography as game or movie prep. Yeah, environment photography. So that's on the list. Very cool. Storytelling, urban experience towards game and movie. Um, Maybe Anka, maybe you can add us like a little second sentence. What you mean by the urban experience towards games and movies, in the sense of, is it more storytelling or how to improve the actual like immersion of what are the aspects of the urban or architectural topics to actually feel immersed, or what are you specifically after? Maybe type a comment. Historical experts to discuss period architecture for games, etc. Theoretical, yeah. Let's add this guy here. Let's rewrite this like that. Running out of space. Experts sound. Cool. Okay, 3D models to create patterns from plush, what's that word? Plush dolls. I'm recently looking into that. Seems very useful, although a bit tricky. Would be interesting. Definitely it's a very interesting topic, especially because you have to look very, very careful at the materials, and at the overall form and patterns. Obviously, also a very important topic. Maybe not enormously, let's say, related to very large scale environments, but hey, characters are kind of also part of environments, so all good. Okay, so I got another comment from Anka. How the regarding her previous comment on urban experience towards game and movie. How the actual realistic details offer more immersion for the player or whoever watches a movie. That's yes. That is. I'm gonna note this. I'm gonna note this one down. This is about the kind of the detail work in the storytelling. So let's say detail, selling the story with for proper immersion. This can go in all sorts of direction. Obviously, this has to do with storytelling. This has to do with, let's say, the atmosphere, the environment of on which type of planet are we? What is the, let's say, the how does politics in this fictional world, for example, influence the weather or the pollution in the environment, and how does that then again influence, for example, the surfaces of the materials of buildings, for example. And that is all kind of, when visualizing these types of world in 3D, these are obviously components that are very important for telling a proper detail. Create patterns to later, so real physical unwrapping the 3D model. Ah, okay. Yeah, that's actually also very important or a very interesting thought from Angelica, that you're not only doing 3D design, for example, or let me start where you have, let's say, a 3D object, and then you start to scan it, for example, and create a 3D model out of it, a digital 3D model. Or on the other hand, you're actually, let's say, using a 3D modeling tool, whichever, doesn't matter, and the texturing tool, and you create the digital 3D model. But actually what Angelica is now saying, that you can also start completely from a digital world and then produce something in the physical world, and like sewing patterns. There's a really cool software out there that I sadly didn't have the time yet to look into, but it's called Marvelous Designer, and that does exactly that. So you can create your own like fabric pieces, and you can even like visualize that in 3D, how you attach the sewing patterns. I'm not a specialist. And then even have a mannequin walk with those digital clothes, and then you can even print the stuff out and fabricate it in physical reality. So there are all of those methods are obviously possible. Where do I put this one in? I'm gonna put this one like that. Yeah. MD rocks. I agree. Digital to physical fabrication. Just adding this as a little comment in here. So, cool. There's quite a lot of potential topics to talk about. Yeah, actually, I just got a comment from Angelica. Oh, I was looking at it in Blender. I didn't know of the one you mentioned. Thanks. It doesn't seem very common used. It's, I guess, it's becoming more and more used, and I'm gonna just note the title down. Marvelous Designer. And it's, as Mike just mentioned, it's an industry leader in kind of the process of the physical fabrication, or actually digital fabrication of fabric, or of textile stuff. So I'm sure Angelica will love this tool. And I'm sure also Mike Hermes has some tutorials on it. And I see a smiley, so all good. Yeah. So, but let's maybe also add a couple of topics that are specifically about, let's say, 3D environments and the art of creating them. Maybe let me actually just create a topic, and maybe some of the comments coming in will give a couple of points of things that, oops, again the wrong one, of a couple of things that we could be talking about, specifically about let's say the 3D environment, let's say maybe techniques. Let me prepare one of the points. Company buddy. Oh, my list is getting filled here. That was the wrong one. There we go. So I see. Cool. Let me note down one of those points here. 3D environment techniques. There are so many techniques when building environments, from especially the distinction between, or the main distinction that I usually do when talking about 3D environments is natural environments, like for example river valleys that have like a little stream in the middle, water stream, and scattered stones, and a distribution of trees, for example. So I'm just going to note down natural environments. And then the other one that I see typically is urban environments. And so just about these, let's say these main topics, there's so much to say, and they could be related to actual, or how do you scatter trees, for example, in a natural environment? How do you create realistic rock formations that can be used, or for example, procedural rock generation and then procedural scattering of rocks, and then next to the rocks, little, let's say, smaller pebbles, and then a couple of types of ferns or other type of vegetation. One of the examples that is very common, I would say, nowadays to see in art forums and also on some YouTube videos is, for example, based on Unreal 5, all these natural environments that are created with, for example, the Quixel suite, or with the Quixel content that is available, ready to be scattered, and something like that is like little cool making ofs, could actually be something that is really, really neat also to talk about. So maybe somebody knows a 3D artist that does, for example, a lot of natural environments with old wooden tree logs or so, and then a little wooden cabin that is modeled specifically for this one image, and then just talk about this project as a kind of work in progress. That would be really neat, for example. Okay, so I see Mike has to very slowly run. Thank you so much for all of the inputs, Mike, no problem. And then there's also the last comment from Mike, is VR training for law enforcement. I will definitely also add this one. This is actually kind of even its own category. I'm just gonna add this guy and move it over here. Let's put here the entire simulations in where people could come in, and let me copy another one of those, move it over again. Like VR training, or other types of let me put some brackets around here. This could be VR training for example, police, fire fighting, and other things like that. There's a gigantic industry just in that field, and to be honest, they don't have the best 3D, let's say, artists. So there's a lot of, or not the best 3D artists. Let me rephrase that. It's actually that because it's a very, let's say, very scientific, it's a very technical and very scientific, and maybe a little bit a dry industry in the sense of it's not about gaming. It's about real world applications that have a lot of real world constraints like budgets or or sad things like riot control or actual firefighting, and so on. So that, let's say, the visual component of those simulators is not the first priority. There's a huge industry just about those topics, and those simulators could also, for example, benefit from, let's say, better visuals, better graphics hardware, and all of those things that also kind of go into the cross-industry collaboration, which I just mentioned at just a couple of minutes ago. Yeah. Some more inputs from your end when you are thinking about just 3D environments in general, just as a plain, let's say, as a plain topic, what it is that pops into your mind, and what would you like to hear from industry specialists, from companies that develop game engines? What would you like to hear from companies that develop 3D software or renderers? Are there specific topics also about, hey, we would like to have better tools that are used, for example, for I don't know, terrain creation or tree scattering or things like that? Maybe you have some ideas, and we could potentially try to invite also some software companies to talk about those topics, and maybe also talk about the challenges, and kind of connect the artists with better with the makers of those tools. Maybe you have some inputs on that, some thoughts, and if you have so, just post them in the chat. Cool. But I mean, we already have quite a few topics, and just looking at the topics, I can definitely see that some of the topics are kind of on its own. And so, for example, if you're trying just to get into the industry, you're maybe knowledgeable in photography, but you may not yet be so interested in things like, for example, 3D environment techniques about how to scatter objects, or for that matter, let me actually go in here and add 3D environment techniques. I'm just gonna do that very plainly and go to urban environments and copy this guy and game level design. I mean, there are entire conferences technically, or almost entire conferences just about games, but specifically about game levels, the 3D environments that go into those games. That is a lot more niche. But I think one of the main reasons, obviously, why we want to do this this conference a little bit different, with a little bit of a different approach. Yeah. So looking at the topics, there's a lot we can use for the preparation for next time. There are also some potential collaborations, as I mentioned, even with larger companies that are actually producing software, and they would like to hear from the software users about, hey, in which direction should we go? And this is a dialogue to be had, because in the end, everybody just tries to be able to be more efficient in moving forward, in trying to create better art, trying to create better tools, and yeah. So there are definitely stories or dialogues to be had. I just reminded myself of, or just popped back into my mind, there's an entire different topic that we should talk about. Not again. Where is it? Just go. Game level design. 3D environment techniques. Let's get this guy. Oops. Now it will not happen. I deactivated the auto select. Okay, so I'm just gonna name this here under, let's say, work ethics. Work ethics in general is probably, or work / workplace ethics is something that is let me rephrase that. Let's do ethics in general and name it something like work, future, AI, and things like that. What I actually mean by that is that we've mentioned it briefly in this first edition of the ICE conference, that there are a lot of techniques and technologies now being developed that are, for example, very strongly linked to machine learning, for example. It's this entire new field that is has been around for, I guess, a long time, but the new approaches like deep learning and so on have catapulted the industry forward. Also together, obviously, with better hardware and better graphics cards that power these algorithms and so on. But actually, there are a lot of doubts and fears about these technologies. Like, let's say, for example, will AI replace me as a 3D artist? So there are some ethical questions that I believe are very interesting to have a chat about. So I'm gonna copy another one of those points, move it over here. Ethics, future safety of job, especially related, I'm going to mention this again, AI. So that is one of the main topics that I'm personally also, or it's one of the topics that I'm personally also very interested in trying to understand in which direction are we actually going with the tools that we're using. So we can also, together obviously with the fear of, hey, will be rationalized away by the machine and by Skynet at some point in time. I doubt it in the near future, but there's definitely a discussion to be had. Yeah, but maybe there are a couple more items you would like to discuss. Please let me know in the comments. I'm thinking about more topics in the sense of ethic and morale. I guess one of the points that I'm gonna add is also things like, no, actually that's up here. That's in the getting into the industry or getting into a job, like things like, for example, salary negotiations. How do I do this? Even though that it's not perfectly directly related to 3D environments, once again, but I believe these are very important topics that need to be discussed in any, let's say, in any industry or in any aspect of the industries that play with 3D environments, or with 3D in general, with the graphics, let's say with the graphics topics. Yeah. So let me quickly check. I'm quickly gonna go back through all of the comments which we got here, so to make sure that we didn't miss anything. So let's go in here. Diversity of topics, definitely. It's 3D environments is definitely one of the topics. There's a huge amount of different aspects to talk about. Then the location, studio tours, yes, and location. My teachers to discuss. Did I have the teachers? Experts. Let's add those guys here. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so I would say it's a very good overview of over the topics that we have so far. I like the richness. I like the variation of topics, and I'm more than sure that we can pull out a lot more detail out of the, let's say, the dynamics that play between the different topics. So that's definitely something that we will do in the team for the organization of the next event. Maybe I'm just gonna wait maybe a couple more minutes. There seem to be no more additional comments coming in. Otherwise, so I'm just quickly gonna switch the screen back to the main view, and just in general gonna slowly wrap up this live stream. And by the way, I'm glad that it worked a few minutes late, but no problem at all. Yeah, so there's so many different topics that we can talk about, and we obviously hope that we can do it next year again in a physical location so we can actually meet each other in person. And where that is, I don't know yet. Next year is still far away, but it looks like most probably we will be targeting again approximately April. We believe that was actually quite a good point in time to actually do a conference like this. In general, so we very deliberately also started with quite a wide variety that was also mentioned in the document, in the comments, with quite a wide array of different presentations to really just show how vast the topic of 3D environments is. It's going in from how do I get into the industry, to the techniques, to potentially to the hardware. Hey, what's the latest and greatest in hardware and processors and things like that. But then it goes also over to like things like matte painting, traditional painting, photography, and then the cross. What I personally also find super interesting is the opportunities that we could have in the dialogues between the different industries, and just mixing the expertise of different companies or of different industries to come up with complete new concepts of developing of developing 3D environments, and kind of leveraging the quality of storytelling, of training, of training the police force, or training other people in VR, for example, to assemble certain things. So, and it's pretty stunning to me. But if you're thinking about it, whenever you're telling a story, or by far most stories that are told out there, in books, in TV series, in film, in games, in VR simulations, and so on, it's always connected to 3D environments, and it's always, let's say, not, or it's always connected to not necessarily human characters, but to characters. And because characters have life, because they have, let's say, a three-dimensional physical form, whenever you want to tell a story, you're creating this space between two characters that are talking to each other, or to the princess in the castle, or the dinosaur walking across, let's say, a green field, or whatever it is. You're always dealing with 3D environments. And that is something that is one of the, this realization of that storytelling is always connected to an environment. This by itself is a very strong thought or insight, and definitely also one of the reasons why we strongly believe that it's worth, and not only worth, but it's a good thing to actually keep developing this conference and attracting more people, more topics, and just in general have a dialogue about all of the topics that we have talked about today, or that we have assembled. Now, I'm just quickly going to show the screen again, so we can have actually a quick look at the topics. I think I need to move myself. I need to move a little bit. Sorry for that. But I hope you can read it nevertheless. Oops, need to close this down here. But I think we're slowly gonna wrap up with with this table here. So let's have a very last look at the different topics first. Getting into the industry, certainly very important for young students and people that want to change their career. Companies in the field, what are people actually doing, or what are companies doing, and maybe they want to bring in more artists. So this could be a cool platform for them to present their companies. An art contest stands by itself, and definitely something that we will pick up on again. Then the theoretical knowledge about 3D environments, that's more like the theory behind what is an environment, how can we, of what does it consist of, especially related to architecture, which is quite a difficult topic, or a complex topic, or urban planning obviously also. Then storytelling, the whole narrative of the story that you're telling in an environment, and also that the environment usually picks up and helps selling the story, or continue telling the story, as kind of what I usually say as a as a silent actor. Then physical models and photography that can be used for painting backdrops, for games, for film, whatever it is. Then we had improving skills. Once you are in the industry, you would like, in an ideal scenario, in an ideal case, you would like to continue learning things. So that's definitely like improving skills / training. So I'm gonna add that actually, / training. It's also obviously very tightly connected to the last point over here, the techniques, natural environments, urban environments, game level design, things like that. So those are obviously connected. And then the cross-industry collaborations, where I see, for example, what could be interested in having some discussions or panels between very large companies, talking about things like, I'm also going to add this at this point here. Let me quickly go grab the help, grab the layers again. Where is it? It's probably hidden here. Sorry, need to break it. Windows, layers. Yeah, because accidentally closed them before. Gonna move this over here. So for example, there's this huge topic called the metaverse. It's a gigantic topic that is popping up all over in all industries, and obviously has to do with also with 3D environments, with games, with payment systems, with augmented reality, with virtual reality, mixed all into this one, let's say, industry trend, you could say, or it's a multi-industry trend. It's a mega trend. And then last but not least, we've had, or simulations, obviously we talked about this topic, and then also the whole side of, let's say, the ethics, work related, future related. There are obviously also the topics of diversity that are very, very important. That play all of that stuff plays into into this topic. Yeah, but so I believe I got quite a lot of inputs for this next iteration of the conference. And so with this, I think we're slowly gonna wrap it up, because I didn't get an additional comment on that stuff. But yeah, I think this was very, very good. And I've been talking for about an hour now, maybe a little bit more than an hour. And yeah, I think this was really, really good. If there are any last comments or questions, then please let me know. Maybe I forgot something. Maybe you have another question, or maybe you would like to know how to reach out to us. And for this, actually, I will post the email address, our email address of the conference here. Conference at ICE.ART. Gonna make this big and colorful. Maybe not. Let me move this over here and go back here, and then I'm gonna make it colorful. Something like this. So, conference at ICE.ART, our email address. If you have anything that you would like to say to us, any ideas, inputs, recommendations for people to potentially invite, or if you have a topic that you think would be interesting to talk about, to present about, let us know, and we will get back to you. Sweet. I think I'm wrapping it up. I'm not getting any more comments in the comment section. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the second edition of the ICE 3D conference, 3D environment conference. Thank you so much, and talk to you very soon. Bye bye. All the best.